Starting at number 10, we have General Zod. This Kryptonian supervillain flaunts the same powers as Superman, but he's also got the know-how of a highly experienced army general, having held the title of Leader of Military Defense for the Science Council on Krypton. General Zod survived the destruction of Krypton and, after being released from the Phantom Zone, became a sworn enemy to Superman. This supervillain is fueled, like many others, by resentment and rage, believing that violence is the only way to make any real change in the world. I put him at the back of our list not to discount his powers, but purely because there are far more powerful beings to come. Number 9, Doomsday. This hyper-regenerative creature was created in a lab and designed to experience death over and over and over again, each time evolving past whatever had killed him the last time. Starting off as a seemingly regular baby, he has grown into a monstrosity that has experienced death so many times that he's become a tormented and, I imagine, exhausted creature that actually holds on to the memories of each experience. So imagine facing the pain of death almost endlessly for eternity, mostly inflicted by superheroes trying to rid the universe of you. You'd be pretty angry too. Doomsday even faces off against and defeats Superman at one point, so his power is not to be underestimated. But he just can't contend with some of the other godlike powers that other villains on this list possess. So for that reason, he's a bit further back on the list, but once again, not to be discounted. At number 8, we have Hela, the eldest daughter of Odin. Hela is endowed with powers superior even to her younger brothers Loki and Thor. Most notably credited with effortlessly shattering Thor's hammer with one hand, this supervillain easily has the ability to rule not only the world, but the whole cosmos. Hela is basically a god, having a set of abilities that practically make her entirely omnipotent, with super strength, super durability, and immortality as long as Asgard existed, omnipresent, with super speed and super reflexes, and omniscient, with her almost endless knowledge of sword and hammer fighting, hand-to-hand combat, acrobatics, and military strategy. If anyone is capable of not only overpowering any good guys standing in her way, but also outsmarting them, it's Hela. Okay, at number 7, we've got the one and only Thanos. Probably the most widely popular on the list, it's not hard to imagine him taking over and ruling the world for obvious reasons. But I know some of you may be shocked to see him at number 7 and not at number 1, 2, or 3, because despite his undeniable strength and motivation to balance out the population of the universe, he wasn't able to do it alone. As we all know, Thanos' peak power relies on the Infinity Stones. So if he failed to obtain them, he may never have had the chance to be on this list at all. And as for his ability to rule the world, the best way I could see that happening would be through fear, keeping his enemies at bay by threatening to use the stones. But once the snap took place, he would still have half the universe to face if he were to try to take over the world. And that's sort of what happens, isn't it? He was tracked down and executed by Thor and the remaining Avengers. And whether we'd like to admit it or not, this shows, I know this sounds wrong, but a weak spot that other villains on this list just don't have. So Thanos is definitely capable of ruling the world as we know it, but there's an asterisk. Might need to undergo a bloody conquest to retrieve Infinity Stones first. At number 6, we've got Darkseid, born as Uxas, with royal status on the planet of Apocalypse. Darkseid was born with supreme power to his father Yuga Khan and mother Hegra. Posing as one of the primary threats in most Superman storylines, Darkseid dedicates his life to taking life away. His main accolade came when he came in contact with the Martians, who shared with him the life equation, at which point Darkseid in all his evil glory theorized that there must be an anti-life equation as well. Google the equation if you want, it's a real bummer. Yeah, so basically, Darkseid is a bad dude. But who isn't on this list? What really sets him apart from the others is his ability to cheat death. When he's seemingly killed in a battle with his son Orion, his life force is able to live on past the destruction of his body and come back to get revenge, killing Orion with a time-traveling bullet. If I wanted to continue exploring all of Darkseid's evil accolades, this part of the video would be 20 minutes long, so I'll just say this. Darkseid is more than capable of taking over the world, having had plenty of experience on Apocalypse. In fact, if he wasn't so obsessed with the anti-life equation, he probably would have done it 10 times over, at least. At number 5, we have Superboy Prime. This young supervillain comes from a version of Earth, Earth Prime, where he is the only superhero in existence. He grew up loving the DC universe, very meta, yes, particularly the Silver Age. But like ours, unfortunately, in his dimension, all these heroes are merely fiction, except for him. But after his homeworld is destroyed along with many other versions of Earth by what is known as Crisis on Infinite Earths, he becomes more and more angry and resentful about the loss of his old life and turns to the dark side, killing many heroes and villains in his way. Now, he is after all credited, should I use that word? With defeating the Justice League, Earth 2 Superman, and the Teen Titans among others, and shattering none other than Anti-Monitor's armor. But since we're talking about ruling the world purely by his somewhat naive, angst-fueled view on reality, he might not be able to maintain rule over the world for long. But nonetheless, this super house of a villain has the perfect balance of dimension-shattering power, insecurity, and resentment to force his way into a position of supreme reign over the world as we know it. Okay, at number 4 we've got Yuga Khan, the all-powerful first ruler of Apocalypse, who was, for a long time, considered the most powerful being in the universe. Father to Darkseid, this ruler fits right into our list because we're talking about not just powerful beings, which Yuga Khan undoubtedly is, but villains that could rule the world, and Yuga Khan had a lot of experience ruling over Apocalypse. His only downfall was that he wanted more power, which proved to be impossible. His attempt to uncover the source, which is defined as the cause of life itself, or the meaning of life if you will, eventually destroyed him. This proved that even the most powerful being in the world was no match for the limits of the universe. However, it does still say a lot that his insatiable thirst for power was the only cause for his downfall, because that very trait that Yuga Khan possesses is the very thing that would land him on this list. I mean, let's be honest, the first ruler of Apocalypse would have no problem ruling over our world as we know it, would he? I don't think so. Gosh, this is getting hard. To be honest, these top 3s could basically be interchangeable. At number 3, we have Galactus. Galactus is basically an interplanetary, interdimensional being that feeds on, yep, you got it, life. I'm sure you've seen this guy before on TV and comics in your nightmares. There's just something about him that makes me feel afraid for my life. Probably the part where he wants to consume it. Throughout the years in the Marvel Universe, Galactus has made many appearances, moving between worlds, taking what he wants, and often leaving planets bare of any life. What's terrifying and powerful about Galactus is that it's not like he's driven by some sort of anger or hatred for humanity and other life in the universe. He's just hungry. Every time he reappears with a vengeance, it's as though he's just trying to satiate a hunger that even he can't control. So if you're gonna ask me if I think he could take over the world, I would say yes. If he could eat the world, he can rule it, I imagine. This guy is so powerful that when the Silver Surfer manages to turn Galactus's own energy siphoning machines against him, his true form is revealed to be a sentient star. So there's no real contest here with how powerful this villain is. The only asterisk I may put here is that in the context of this list, there's a chance that he doesn't pull off a very steady reign over civilization, because as soon as he gets that insatiable hunger for life again, he'll have no world to rule. Number 2 on our list goes to Anti-Monitor. Born on one of the moons of an evil dimension called Quord, Anti-Monitor is basically the manifestation of evil. He was created billions of years ago after a scientist named Krona tried to witness the origins of life itself. So he was created from arguably one of the original events that brought evil into the universe. Then there was a million-year war with his good counterpart known as, you guessed it, Monitor. The results which was a draw. Boring. Then they both fell unconscious for 9 billion years. Even more boring, but the rest of this villain story is anything but boring. After his hibernation, he wakes up and destroys a whole universe. One of many in the future. You know why? Because another scientist, this one named Pariah, tried to observe the origins of the universe again. Anyway, Anti-Monitor becomes infinitely stronger from this, having created an antimatter universe, and sets out to wreak more havoc. This guy belongs right at the top of the list because he seems to only appear when the very essence of evil is released into the universe. He's huge, he literally eats universes for breakfast, and as a little added bit to the resume, he's known as being pretty good at leadership, having led an army of Quordians and shadow demons on his conquest to take down whole universes. There's so much more to Anti-Monitor's story, and even though it sort of ends when Superman 2 kills him, I would argue that a villain that can consume whole universes could, if he so pleased, make a pit stop and rule the world for a bit. Maybe get bored of that, go and rule another world for a bit, and still make it home for dinner. And what would be for dinner, you ask? Probably another universe. There's no touching this guy. The only reason why I don't give him a #1 spot is only because even though he'd be able to rule the world with ease, he'd probably not even choose to do so. His ambitions go way beyond conquering planets, so I mean, would his lack of interest be the very thing that got in the way of successfully taking over our tiny world? I'll leave that up to you guys. Alright, at #1, we have a villain that ticks off all the boxes. He's extremely powerful, interdimensional, very, very evil, and has more mortal-like ambitions that would and have set his sights on ruling our world. And that is Kang the Conqueror. Now, I know what you're thinking. This guy isn't a universe destroyer. Okay, but remember, this is a list about the top 10 villains who could rule the world. And out of everyone in the Marvel Universe, Kang is arguably the most powerful evil villain who deals primarily with earthly ambitions. He's able to travel through time like it's part of his daily routine, constantly posing as a major threat to the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, and constantly manipulating the outcome of events on Earth and beyond due to his superior hindsight. But beyond that, his resume is insane, having already conquered thousands of worlds over a 100 light-year conquest, destroying Washington DC, killing his own son, killing his own lover, trying to kill baby versions of the Avengers, and even killing past versions of himself, all to get to his final goal. Kang really stops at nothing to get what he wants, ignoring his love for even his closest allies and family members, and altering the course of multiple realities to see any outcome he desires. Also, he killed his lover because he was in limbo and basically got bored. This villain is the manifestation of fate. He chooses what happens in the world, and unlike the second on our list, he has many human-like traits that I would argue make him even more evil. There were early versions of Kang that were actually good, like Rama Tut, Immortus, and Iron Lad, but he chose evil over good, and actively uses his almost infinite power to kill countless people, and mutants from the Marvel Universe as well. Almost all of them at one point. He's ruthless, has an evil tyrannous king, Henry VIII vibe, and would easily set his sights on our world if he so chose. And he has chosen. Many times before, in many different timelines. At #10, we have ANNIHILUS. Using the cosmic control rod, ANNIHILUS ameliorates his own well-being, spending most of his time trying to find ways to make himself, yes, immortal. The rod is known to have almost limitless capabilities, so his efforts aren't in vain, as he has found ways to fend off disease, slowing down cellular degeneration, otherwise known as aging, and warding off heat and cold. He also uses it to fly super fast, which is another plus. The only reason why ANNIHILUS is back at #10 for me is that he seems to need the cosmic control rod to achieve immortality. And even while he has it, he's known to be liable to make big mistakes due to his paranoia that others are going to try and snatch it from him. Remember kids, the real superpower is up here. #9 goes to Apocalypse. This villain, often facing off against the X-Men, originated in ancient Egypt, giving hints that he's capable of existing for hundreds of years at a time without meeting death. Yeah, so he's also known to have supreme control over his body from an atomic level, being capable of growing in size and density whenever he chooses, and adapting to his environment and fighting off disease. Not only that, but he's immune to aging. Again. So when Apocalypse was finally defeated by Cable, he wasn't actually killed and regenerated in a tomb in Aqaba. So there you have it. It seems like this guy will always be around. Our best bet is to keep him at bay for a while before he inevitably comes back, possibly repeating this process for eternity. Alright, at #8 we have Mephisto, a demon creature who presents similarly to how humans view Satan. And yes, he did this to manipulate our singular views of evil through our tale of Satan the fallen angel. Regardless, Mephisto is known to be so powerful that he does not need food or water, or even oxygen to survive. He even has abilities to regenerate in the instances that he is damaged going as far as regrowing limbs. And he can also see his own future if he so chooses. So even if something was coming his way that could somehow usurp his seemingly immortal powers, he would see it coming and put a stop to it before it could reach him. Mephisto proves to be a threat throughout the ages, and although he does face certain limitations to his powers and influence, this list isn't about power, but about immortality. So there you go. Number 7, we've got Anti-Monitor. Yes, this villain appears a lot on these powerful villain super lists, but I couldn't ignore him on this one even if I tried. His influence in the comics is immense, but what places him in this list is primarily his near infinite age. This guy was born in the early days of the cosmos, lived for over 9 billion years in a dormant state, and even fought a battle with his counterpart, Monitor, for 1,000,000 years. It's hard enough for most beings to live that long, let alone be in a constant battle the whole time. And on top of all this, he's also just proven to be nearly impossible to kill. Even when he's vanquished for good, he isn't really killed, but instead broken up into molecules and scattered through the universe. And he had to be punched into a star to make that happen, by Superman from Earth 2, with the help of DARKSEID, Superboy Prime, Dr. Light, and heroic Lex Luthor. So I'd argue that Anti-Monitor definitely deserves a spot on this list. Number 6 on our list goes to the one and only Kang the Conqueror. This villain is so powerful that he's able to change the course of history with little to no effort. His ability to traverse through time gives him supreme insight and also the capability to appear in any time in the history of our universe, future, past, and present. He's a real contender for this list because although he's been defeated in the past, he was really only in a state of limbo, and he never truly meets a final end. I mean, he's able to not only design the outcome of reality in most cases, but also just exist in any time he'd like. He once lived in ancient Egypt, and also the turn of the 20th century. The point is, Kang shows time and time again that he's capable of existing in multiple times throughout history, which I would argue could be a form of immortality. As Schrodinger's logic would go, Kang has and hasn't existed at every moment in history and the future. It would just be up to us to observe him, and well, good luck with that. Alright, at number 5, I'm putting DORMAMMU. Am I pronouncing that right? Another villain who's been around for countless millennia, possibly even millions of years. DORMAMMU proves to be powerful enough and durable enough to possibly be considered immortal. One piece of evidence is his clash with Agamotto, a spawn of one of the elder gods where DORMAMMU actually held his own. And for those of you who don't know, Agamotto easily contended against Galactus himself. And if that wasn't enough to suggest Dormammu's potential for immortality, he's also immune to aging and harm of any kind, physical or mystical. His powers have also been used for resurrection in the past, so it's fair to say that stopping this guy will be tough, and arguably won't be permanent in any case. Okay, at number 4, we're looking at SURTUR, the 1,000-foot tall fire giant who can move stuff with his mind. SURTUR was the sworn enemy of Odin and Thor and eventually destroys Asgard. At a few points, SURTUR is imprisoned and banished, but never completely destroyed. Even after one of these instances where SURTUR was transported to the Sea of Eternal Light and frozen for all time, he still re-emerges after a Norwegian guy named Sven finds a medallion with connections to SURTUR, and subsequently turns into him. Thank you so much, Sven. And once again, when he's finally defeated by the Asgardians, he isn't really, since he just finds himself resurrected in a realm called Muspelheim. There's one instance where he's then beheaded by the Twilight Sword, another where he's basically destroyed by Odin who steals the Eternal Flame from him, but based on his track record, I'm not buying that any of these instances are the last of him. We're in the top 3, folks, and at number 3 we have none other than THANOS. I know, yes, in the movies he was beheaded, but many argue that this isn't the end of him. Thanos is an ancient Eternal who was born on the planet Titan to his father Alars, also an Eternal. So, this dates Thanos back about 1,000,000 years, and Thanos himself is an Eternal, meaning we can at least deduct that he's immune to all disease and aging. In fact, Thanos was specifically banned by death from his realm, meaning it's almost confirmed that he can't be killed. So yeah, in the movie, spoiler alert, should have said that by now, we all saw him die. But by the laws of this character's storyline, this won't be the last we see of Thanos, no matter how severe the injury appears to be. Number 2, we've got the insatiable Galactus. This bad guy is hardly a villain anymore and more like a floating entity that feeds on the energy of life forms. Interdimensional and one of the oldest known beings to ever exist, Galactus always finds a way to bring evil to the cosmos. Even in his apparent death, he was replaced by Abraxas, who basically took over in his absence. As much as Galactus is able to endure, and despite his nearly infinite age, there are instances where he's weakened and put into submissive positions by other forces in the cosmos. The closest he comes to truly dying is when Thor and Galactus's attempted assault on the Black Winter goes horribly wrong and Thor turns on him, leaving him on the brink of death. A little too late, I'd say, considering you just let him consume 5 planets, Thor, but also good on you for killing Galactus sooner or later. But does Galactus ever die? Not really. Let's just hope that Abraxas doesn't come back again while he's gone. We don't want that. That guy's no good either. At number 1, we have the Goblin entity. This being was created at the point of the Big Bang, so one of the oldest on our list for sure. That said, the power of this villain has sustained over billions of years, and just like Galactus, it is driven by its insatiable hunger for energy. It's basically a giant, dark entity that moves through the cosmos, ingesting everything in its way. It is confirmed that the Goblin entity cannot die, and if it were to be killed, similarly to everyone else on this list, it would find a way to regenerate. It seems what we're dealing with in this top 10 is a group of villains that just won't stop, no matter how hard you try to defeat them. But perhaps by exploring the villains with potential immortality, we're also exploring the deepest depths of true metaphorical evil found in the DC and Marvel universes, in that in the real world as well, evil does always find its way back into the world, and all that can be done about it is temporary. Although those moments are sweet, where good wins, it's not long before we have to prepare for evil to return and rear its ugly head again.
Number 10, Nightmare. Nightmare is one of the Fear Lords, who rules over the Nightmare dimension, of the Dream dimension, of the Splinter dimensions, of the Dark dimensions. Nightmare rules over the Nightmare dimension, which is where people go when they have nightmares. Let's just leave it at that. He is a Fear Lord, one of these guys, and he first appeared in Strange Tales 110, which is also the first appearance of Stephen Strange. So if you thought we were not covering Nightmare, you thought wrong. In the follow-up Doctor Strange story, the world is destroyed, and Doctor Strange goes to seek the help of Eternity, who is the physical embodiment of the Marvel Universe, only to find Nightmare captured Eternity in the Dream dimension and subjected him to horrible dreams. Because Nightmare's powers are fueled by humans, it took a battle between the Ancient One and Eternity to convince Eternity to reform the Earth and human civilization. That's how scary nightmares are! He shows up occasionally, tormenting heroes in their dreams, and leaving his realm to depower him so that heroes can actually defeat him. Usually, it's Doctor Strange doing the hard work inside other people's dreams though. Number 9, KULAN GATH. KULAN GATH was a sorcerer who lived in Earth's Hyborian era, aka the time of Conan the Barbarian. He actually isn't the original KULAN GATH though. Well, he is, and he isn't. See, KULAN had a slave who poisoned him and assumed his identity. When this KULAN GATH set out the training of the then Sorcerer Supreme, Mekri Ra, he was refused. He responded by murdering and consuming the Sorcerer Supreme, gaining his power. As an enemy of Conan, KULAN was eventually beheaded by the Barbarian, but not before he had become immortal by putting his essence in a magical amulet. That's a Horcrux! After the amulet had made its way to Manhattan in the modern era, it ended up in the hands of a mugger who donned the amulet, allowing KULAN GATH to possess and transform the body of the mugger. Then, he transformed Manhattan into a replica of the time he came from, manipulated the minds of everyone there, and took control of the minds of the Avengers, X-Men, New Mutants, and Morlocks to hunt down Spider-Man. It took the combined powers of Doctor Strange and the mutant magic to change time so that the mugger was killed by Nimrod instead. You know you're a problem when people just go back in time to take you out. Number 8, Loki. At this point, I'm pretty sure everyone and their mom has heard of the god of mischief, Loki. If not from the MCU, then at least from the actual Norse mythology. So I'm not gonna go into a huge backstory spiel, but do you know how actually powerful Loki is? Obviously he is a god, and the number of benefits that come with that title are, well, he doesn't really need a plan, let's just say that. He is super strong, super durable, super fast, he's got a healing factor, and he lives for a hell of a long time. But more than that, Loki himself is an extremely powerful sorcerer. So powerful in fact that Loki even recently took on the role of Sorcerer Supreme through a little of his trickster ways. Let me tell you, it took Stephen Strange harnessing the full power of the World Tree Yggdrasil, plus the strength of the Sentry, and more prominently the Void, which is capable of destroying Asgard and has even killed Loki in the past, for Doctor Strange to get the mantle back. Needless to say, Loki is an extremely powerful villain for most characters in the Marvel Universe, but as a sorcerer, he is a pain in the backside of our Sorcerer Supreme. Number 7. Baron Mordo. You know that guy who is basically Stephen Strange's sidekick in the first movie? Yeah, that guy. That's Mordo. So Mordo was born in Transylvania, basically as a means of another sorcerer, this dude, gaining power. And when that all went kaput, Mordo was trained in the ways of black magic. At the age of 30, he went to Tibet to find and study with the Ancient One, and it is here that he eventually met our lovely boy Steven. Mordo didn't really dig Strange though. And when Steven walked in on Mordo doing some nefarious planning to attack his master, Mordo cast a spell to stop Steven from warning Baldy. He's the bad guy though, and this is the origin story of Doctor Strange, so you can imagine how it didn't go too well for him. Steven became the Sorcerer Supreme, and Mordo left, continuing his studies of dark magic on his own time. He has always been a long-time rival to Strange and the Ancient One, causing all kinds of mischievous activity, helping other villains like Dormammu, and joining multiple different mystic teams. As another powerful sorcerer, he has many abilities and spells equal to Doctor Strange, except he's got a fair dose of the old black magic, which is always a problem for bad guys. I'm super excited to see what part he plays in the Multiverse of Madness, especially with that hair. Damn, boy! Number 6. Doctor Doom. He's got arguably the best lines in Marvel Comics. He rules Latveria. His mother sacrificed her soul to the devil to make him a monarch. He's got a huge ego, but not for no reason. I don't think there is a hero that hasn't come into some kind of contact with Doctor Doom, although he is primarily a Fantastic Four villain. His use of magic, though, brings him into interaction with the Sorcerer Supreme so many times. Doctor Doom was introduced to sorcery through his mother, but received a huge power boost when he sacrificed the soul of his former lover, Valeria, to the Hazareth III, who in return granted him magical armor made of Valeria's skin and flesh. Couldn't be me. With their power and his own sorcery, Doom can create mystical blasts and force fields, invoke entities, cast more powerful spells, reverse other spells, summon demonic hordes, teleport, travel to other dimensions, mystical ensnaring in portals, magically heal himself and others, banish others, time travel, absorb power, manipulate elements, perform telekinesis, nullify others' powers. And I think that's the list. But other than his sorcery, he is a super genius in the vein of Tony Stark, even eventually becoming Iron Man for a while. He's a master martial artist, he is at peak human condition, he's got great connections, he's super charismatic, and just plays the piano like a pro. His biggest weakness is that damn ego. But there was a point in time where he was known as God Emperor Doom when he used the power of the Beyonders to create and rule over Battleworld, making the Sorcerer Supreme his sheriff. Like I said, he kind of has a right to possess such an ego. I mean, just look at him! Number 5. Mephisto. Mephisto has always been somewhat of a background character, jumping up here and again in Marvel Comics, but with no real huge events to his name, although he has been a part of a few. Mephisto is an extremely powerful extra-dimensional demon who very closely resembles the devil, but that may only be because it's the easiest way for him to use people's fears to his advantage. Mephisto's calling card is making bets, but they're never fair wagers. He always seems to get people in the wording of his deals. He'd probably make one hell of a lawyer. Usually Mephisto is asking people to put their souls, or the souls of those they love, on the line. Like with Doctor Doom's mother or Johnny Blaze, or most recently when he and Doctor Strange had a bet that people weren't all that bad in exchange for Doctor Strange's soul. That kind of thing. In his own dimension, the Hell Lord is basically omnipotent, although he can be defeated by someone who is smart enough or powerful enough. As a mystical entity, he's been a long-time foe of the Sorcerer Supreme, and his most recent story, involving a hotel he sprouted up in the middle of Las Vegas, is just so quirky and fun. Number 4. Umar. Umar of the Faltine is an insanely powerful being who is the sister of Dormammu. Umar ended up having a little bow-chicka-wow-wow with Dormammu's disciple Orani, which led to Umar giving birth. The sweet miracle of birth changed Umar, making her incapable of turning back into her Faltine form, depowering her significantly. This kinda drove her crazy and she lashed out at everyone, including her much more powerful brother, who banished her to a pocket dimension of the Dark Dimension. Quite the falling out. She loves her brother though, so when he's defeated by Doctor Strange and she is freed from her banishment, she goes on to try and avenge her brother. When she went to Earth to destroy it, however, she was defeated by another extremely powerful entity. But before we get on to that guy, I just wanted to say a quick thanks for watching from me and us here at Top 10 Nerd. I hope you're enjoying the video. If you are, why not give us a little like and tap that subscribe button? You are the reason we can do what we do. I love you guys. Alright, on to top 3. Number 3, Zom. When the aforementioned UMAR invaded Earth and Doctor Strange could not defeat her, he needed some way to put her down. The Ancient One told Doctor Strange about the 20-foot, 18,000-pound interdimensional being Zom. Doctor Strange was like, okay, perfect, I'll just go summon him, which he did, and Zom easily defeated UMAR. But now he's free, and no one wants to be put back in the mystical slammer, so he turns on the Doctor. Zom is so powerful that there was absolutely nothing Doctor Strange could do. Even if all the reality warping heroes and all the Avengers combined forces, they would not be able to defeat Zom. It took the power of the living tribunal, the literal judge of the multiverse, who had not even been seen in Marvel Comics before this point, to whisk him away. And then the tribunal scolded Doctor Strange for summoning a being who could literally wipe out the multiverse. He threatened to destroy Earth. It was that intense. Zom has no other goal than to completely annihilate and destroy everything, ever. Zom is one of the most powerful mystical entities in the entire Marvel universe, and the Living Tribunal is the only person who has been shown to stop him. Number 2, Dormammu. Dormammu is one of a race of extra-dimensional energy beings called the Faltine. Him and his sister Umar are both mutants of the species, seeking to consume matter instead of energy, which, along with killing their pops, caused them to be banished. They both traveled to the Dark Dimension and eventually took it over, but we know what happened to their relationship afterwards. Dormammu is the prime enemy of the Vishanti, the gods who give the Sorcerer Supreme his supreme merch, and is stated by Odin to be his equal in power. He is basically immortal and indestructible because of his energy body. He is more powerful than even the greatest sorcerers, including Doctor Strange and the Ancient One, and he can banish anyone from his domain, the Dark Dimension, but usually fights them for a bit of the old sport. He also has super strength, astral projection, matter transmutation, interdimensional teleportation, flight, can change his appearance and size. He can control the elements, time travel, and project and absorb energy. He's also immortal and has a regenerative healing factor. Dormammu first appeared in Strange Tales number 126 when he threatened the Ancient One with an invasion. The old guy sent Doctor Strange to the Dark Dimension to face Dormammu. The eventual fight set mindless ones loose, causing Dormammu and Strange to team up. Dormammu promised not to invade Earth, but he got all bitter and petty and has been one of Strange's most fearsome enemies since. He's faced almost everyone on this list. Number 1, SHUMA-GORATH. SHUMA-GORATH is one of the greatest of the leaders of the Old Ones, also known as the Many-Angled Ones, which are a race of nightmare fuel. Think Lovecraft, so tentacles and madness and all that jazz. It is the ruler of hundreds of dimensions and is said to be older than the universe itself. It has many mystical powers, including the ability to communicate and control others across dimensions, create mystical energy blasts from his eyes and tentacles, and can transmute things on a planetary scale. He can destroy multiple galaxies with his aura pressure, and can destroy realities by using his tentacles to create a ball of energy that he launches at realities. I'm sorry, does anyone else find the word tentacles funny? Anyone? They first fully premiered in Marvel Premiere Volume 1, Number 10. In the comic, they end up using the mind of the Ancient One, Doctor Strange's mentor, as a portal to the dimension of Earth. Doctor Strange goes into the Ancient One's mind to battle the defenses of SHUMA-GORATH and fight his way into its realm, only to realize that the only way to win is to kill the Ancient One. He's forced to do it.